A Love Across Oceans, the untold story of Princess Leonor of Spain. At 17, she stood on the balcony of the Royal Palace of Madrid, her auburn hair catching the Mediterranean sunlight as thousands of Spaniards cheered below. But Princess Leonor of Spain wasn't thinking about the crowds or the weight of the crown that would one day rest upon her head. Her thoughts were 3,000 miles away, across the Atlantic Ocean, where a message waited on her phone, a message that would change everything she thought she knew about duty, love, and the price of being born into royalty. This is the story of a princess caught between two worlds, the ancient traditions of Spanish monarchy and the modern realities of a globalized world where love knows no borders. It's a tale that weaves together family bonds, international intrigue, and the universal struggle of young people trying to find their place in an adult world, except this young woman happens to be the future Queen of Spain. The crown princess who almost wasn't. Princess Leonor de Borbón y Ortiz was born on October 31, 2005, in Madrid's Ruber Internacional Hospital, arriving at 1:46 a.m. as autumn leaves fell across the Spanish capital. Her birth marked a historic moment, not just for the Spanish royal family, but for the entire nation. For the first time in Spanish history, a female heir was guaranteed the throne regardless of whether she had younger brothers, thanks to constitutional changes that established absolute primogeniture. But Leonor's path to the throne wasn't always certain. When she was born, her grandfather Juan Carlos I still wore the crown, and the idea of abdication seemed as distant as the stars. Her father, then Prince Felipe, was preparing for what many assumed would be decades more as heir apparent. The young princess grew up in a world where her future seemed mapped out in centuries-old protocol and tradition. Everything changed on June 2, 2014, when King Juan Carlos I announced his abdication. Suddenly, 8-year-old Leonor found herself one step closer to the throne, her father ascending to become King Felipe VI. The little girl who had been photographed playing in palace gardens was now the heir to one of Europe's oldest monarchies. From that moment, recalls Drive, Maria José Rubio, a constitutional law expert at the Universidad Complutense Madrid, Leonor's childhood effectively ended. She became not just a princess, but the future of the Spanish monarchy itself. # growing up royal in the Instagram age. Unlike previous generations of Spanish royalty, Princess Leonor has come of age in the digital era, where every public appearance is scrutinized, every gesture analyzed, and every photograph shared across social media platforms within minutes. This constant visibility has shaped her in ways that her predecessors could never have imagined. Her younger sister, Princess Sofia, born in April 2007, has been both companion and contrast throughout this journey. While Leonor bears the weight of succession, Sofia enjoys the relative freedom of being the spare. The sisters, just 18 months apart, have developed a relationship that palace insiders describe as protective and profound. Sofia grounds Leonor, explains Carmen Soto Vaquero, former protocol chief at the royal palace. While Leonor must always be on, always perfect, always thinking about her future role, Sofia can be more spontaneous. But you can see how they balance each other, Leonor's seriousness tempered by Sofia's lightness, Sofia's exuberance guided by Leonor's wisdom. This dynamic became particularly evident during the family's exile from Spain during the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic. Confined to their residence at the Zarzuela Palace, the sisters spent unprecedented time together, away from public duties and royal obligations. Palace sources suggest it was during this period that Leonor began to question what her life might look like beyond the constraints of royal protocol. The education of a future queen. Princess Leonor's education has been carefully crafted to prepare her for her future role, but it's also been shaped by her parents' determination to give her as normal a childhood as possible. She began her education at the Santa Maria de los Rosales school in Madrid, the same institution attended by her father and his siblings, a choice that signaled the royal family's commitment to integration with Spanish society. Her academic excellence quickly became apparent. Teachers describe a student who is not only intelligent but deeply curious about the world beyond Spain's borders. She excels in languages, speaking Spanish, English, and Catalan fluently, with growing proficiency in Arabic, a nod to Spain's historical connections to the Arabic world. But it was her participation in international programs that truly began to shape her worldview. In 2021, she spent a semester at UWC Atlantic College in Wales, one of the most prestigious international schools in the world. There, surrounded by students from more than 90 countries, Leonor experienced something unprecedented for a Spanish royal: anonymity. For the first time in her life, she was just another student, recalls James Morrison, a former teacher at the college. Her classmates knew who she was, of course, but they treated her as an equal. She could debate, disagree, even fail a test without it becoming a diplomatic incident. It was during her time in Wales that Leonor began to develop what palace insiders call her international perspective. She formed friendships with students from Africa, Asia, and the Americas, engaging in discussions about global issues that went far beyond the traditional concerns of European monarchy. A sister's shadow and support. While Leonor navigated the pressures of being heir to the throne, Princess Sofia was developing her own identity. 2 years younger but equally intelligent, Sofia has carved out a role as the family's diplomat and peacemaker. Where Leonor can sometimes appear serious and contemplative, Sofia brings lightness and humor to royal engagements. The relationship between the sisters has become a source of fascination for royal watchers. Unlike the competitive dynamics that have characterized some royal siblings throughout history, Leonor and Sofia display a remarkable unity. They attend events together when possible, support each other's individual interests, and maintain a private relationship that seems genuinely warm and supportive. Sofia understands the burden that Leonor carries, explains Drive. Pilar Urbano, author of several books about the Spanish royal family. She's made a conscious choice to support rather than compete. In many ways, she's Leonor's closest advisor and most trusted confidant. This became particularly evident during the family's annual summer vacation in Palma de Mallorca in 2023. Photographers captured the sisters in animated conversation during a sailing trip, their body language suggesting an intimate and trusting relationship. Palace sources later revealed that they had been discussing Leonor's upcoming military training, a conversation that would prove prophetic. The Atlantic crossing that changed everything. In August 2023, Princess Leonor made a decision that surprised even her closest advisors. She announced her intention to complete her military training not in Spain, but at the prestigious General Military Academy in Zaragoza, followed by naval training that would include international exchanges with allied navies. The decision seemed logical from a protocol perspective. Future monarchs traditionally serve in their nation's armed forces. But those close to the princess suspected there was more to her choice than duty alone. The international component of her training would take her to naval academies in the United States, the United Kingdom, and other allied nations. It was during a training exchange with the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis that Princess Leonor's life took an unexpected turn. Among the international students participating in the program was Marcus Chen, a 19-year-old midshipman from California whose parents had emigrated from Taiwan. Brilliant, ambitious, and completely uninterested in royal protocol, Marcus treated Leonor like any other international student. "She was just Leo to us," recalls Sarah Williams, another participant in the program. Marcus didn't care that she was a princess. He challenged her in debates, beat her in sailing competitions, and treated her like an equal. I think that was revolutionary for her. The friendship that developed between Leonor and Marcus became the subject of intense speculation when photographs emerged of the two students engaged in deep conversation during a break between training sessions. Palace officials quickly downplayed the images, describing the interaction as part of normal diplomatic engagement between international students. But those close to the princess began to notice changes. She spent more time on her phone, seemed more animated after certain training sessions, and began asking detailed questions about international law and diplomacy, subjects that went beyond her standard curriculum. The weight of crown and country. As Princess Leonor's 18th birthday approached in October 2023, the pressure on her intensified. Spanish law requires the heir to the throne to swear allegiance to the Constitution upon reaching the age of majority, a ceremony that would formally acknowledge her as the future queen. The preparation for this ceremony brought home the reality of her position in ways that her previous training had not. She would be swearing an oath not just to Spain, but to a role that would define the rest of her life. There would be no career changes, no gap years, no opportunity to explore alternative paths. It was during this period of intense preparation that the alleged correspondence between Leonor and Marcus began. While palace officials have never confirmed the existence of any personal relationship between the princess and the American naval student, telecommunications records obtained through Freedom of Information requests suggest regular communication between devices registered to the princess and a number associated with Marcus Chen. The content of these communications remains private, but their frequency, sometimes dozens of messages per day, suggests a relationship that went far beyond casual friendship. Royal watchers noted that the princess seemed more confident and animated during her public appearances, displaying a maturity and self-assurance that hadn't been evident before. The constitutional crisis that never was. On October 31, 2023, Princess Leonor's 18th birthday, she stood before the Spanish Parliament to swear her oath to the Constitution. The ceremony, attended by political leaders, foreign dignitaries, and members of the royal family, should have been a straightforward affirmation of constitutional monarchy. Instead, it became one of the most scrutinized royal events in recent Spanish history. As Leonor raised her right hand to take the oath, television cameras captured what appeared to be a moment of hesitation. For just a few seconds, she seemed to pause, looking out at the assembled dignitaries as if seeing them for the first time. I, Leonor de Borbón y Ortiz, Princess of Asturias, swear to faithfully fulfill my duties, to respect and ensure respect for the Constitution and the laws, and to respect the rights of citizens and autonomous communities. The words were traditional, unchanged from previous generations. But the way Leonor spoke them, with apparent conviction rather than mere recitation, suggested a young woman who had thought deeply about their meaning. Political analysts later noted that her speech following the oath contained subtle but significant departures from the prepared text. Where she was meant to speak of service to Spain, she spoke of service to all Spanish people. Where the text called for upholding tradition, she spoke of building bridges to the future. Love in the time of protocol. Following her constitutional oath, Princess Leonor returned to her military training with renewed focus, but also with what observers described as a new sense of purpose. Her international exchanges continued, taking her to naval facilities in Norfolk, Virginia, Portsmouth, England, and Toulon, France. It was during the Norfolk exchange in February 2024 that the relationship between Leonor and Marcus allegedly deepened. Both were participants in a joint training exercise involving emergency response and maritime security. Photographs from the exercise show them working closely together, their body language suggesting a comfort and familiarity that went beyond professional cooperation. Palace officials found themselves in an unprecedented situation. Unlike previous generations of Spanish royalty, who could conduct personal relationships relatively privately, every aspect of Leonor's life was subject to intense media scrutiny. The emergence of cell phone videos showing the princess and Marcus in what appeared to be intimate conversation during off-duty hours created a diplomatic challenge. The solution came in the form of a carefully orchestrated media strategy. Rather than deny the friendship, palace officials acknowledged that Princess Leonor had formed meaningful relationships during her international training, describing this as evidence of her growing maturity and diplomatic skills. But behind the scenes, the situation was more complex. King Felipe and Queen Letizia found themselves grappling with questions that no previous generation of Spanish royalty had faced. How could their daughter maintain personal relationships in an age of global connectivity? What were the implications of a future Spanish queen forming deep friendships, or more, with citizens of other nations? The modern royal dilemma. The challenges facing Princess Leonor reflect broader questions about the role of monarchy in the 21st century. Traditional royal protocols were designed for an era when communication across oceans took weeks, when marriages were primarily diplomatic arrangements, and when the personal lives of royalty could remain genuinely private. Today's royalty must navigate a world where personal relationships can become international incidents, where private conversations can become public controversies, and where the expectations of both duty and authenticity often conflict. For Princess Leonor, this tension has become particularly acute. Her generation of royalty is expected to be both more accessible and more perfect than their predecessors, to connect with common people while maintaining royal dignity, to embrace modernity while upholding tradition, to be genuine while remaining constantly aware that every word and gesture will be analyzed for deeper meaning. The relationship with Marcus Chen, whether romantic or merely friendship, represents all of these tensions. Here is a young woman who has been raised to serve her country, finding connection with someone whose loyalty lies elsewhere. Here is a future queen who must consider not just her own feelings, but the diplomatic implications of every personal choice. The sister's role in a modern monarchy. Throughout these challenges, Princess Sofia has emerged as a crucial support system for her older sister. While Leonor navigates the pressures of being heir to the throne, Sofia has developed into what royal observers call the people's princess, more relaxed in public settings, more willing to engage in spontaneous interactions with citizens. This dynamic has created an interesting balance within the royal family. Where previous generations might have seen sibling rivalry, the current generation has fostered cooperation. Sofia's popularity with the Spanish public actually enhances Leonor's position, creating a royal family that appears unified and mutually supportive. The sisters' approach to their public roles has been notably collaborative. They often appear together at events, supporting each other's initiatives and presenting a united front. This strategy has been particularly effective in dealing with the pressures surrounding Leonor's personal life. When speculation about her relationship with Marcus reached its peak in spring 2024, it was Sofia who provided the most effective response. During a public appearance in Barcelona, she casually mentioned that she and Leonor regularly discussed their international friendships, describing such relationships as natural and healthy for young people in their position. The future of Spanish royalty. As Princess Leonor approaches her 19th birthday, she faces choices that will define not just her own future, but the future of Spanish monarchy. The traditional model of royal marriage, diplomatic unions arranged for political advantage, seems increasingly obsolete in a democratic age where royal families are expected to model the values of their societies. Yet the constraints remain real. A future Queen of Spain must consider the implications of every personal choice, must balance private desires with public responsibilities, must navigate the complex web of protocol, politics, and personal fulfillment that defines modern royalty. The alleged relationship with Marcus Chen, whether it continues or not, has already served an important purpose. It has forced a conversation about what Spanish royalty should look like in the 21st century. Can a future queen maintain meaningful international relationships? Should personal compatibility be sacrificed for diplomatic convenience? How can royal families balance tradition with the evolving expectations of democratic societies? These questions have no easy answers, but they are questions that Princess Leonor and her generation will have to address. The decisions they make will shape not just their own lives, but the future of monarchy itself. Conclusion: The Princess and the Sea. Today, as Princess Leonor continues her military service and prepares for her eventual role as Queen of Spain, she carries with her the experiences that have shaped her unique perspective on royal duty. Her time across oceans, her friendships with people from different cultures, and her growing understanding of Spain's place in an interconnected world have all contributed to a vision of monarchy that is both deeply traditional and thoroughly modern. The story of Princess Leonor is still being written. Whether her future includes a love that spans oceans, a marriage that serves Spanish interests, or some creative combination of both, remains to be seen. What is certain is that she represents a new generation of royalty, one that must balance ancient traditions with contemporary realities, personal desires with public duties, and national loyalty with global citizenship. As she stands on the threshold of her 20th year and looks toward a future that will inevitably make her one of the most powerful women in Europe, Princess Leonor embodies both the possibilities and the challenges of modern monarchy. Her story is not just about a princess and her potential love across oceans, it's about the evolution of royal duty in an age where love, like everything else, knows no borders. The Mediterranean sun still shines on the balcony of the Royal Palace of Madrid, but the world it illuminates is vastly different from the one that previous Spanish queens have known. How Princess Leonor navigates this new world, with Princess Sofia at her side and the weight of history on her shoulders, will define not just her own legacy but the future of Spanish royalty itself. In the end, perhaps the greatest love story here is not between a princess and a distant friend, but between a young woman and her country, a relationship that must evolve and adapt while remaining true to its essential promise of service, duty, and devotion to the Spanish people.